The time has come to return to the stories long past of baseball's greatest heroes. We took our break ending on a very happy ending for Hector Espino. But not all of baseball is made up of happy endings. Many times, like life itself, to keep balance it must have tragedy too. This is the sad but beautiful story of Russia's greatest ball player, his harrowing childhood, trailblazing career, and his sudden and mysterious end. This is the tale of Viktor Starfinn on global baseball's finest. Once upon a time, in Nizhny Tagil, in the Ural Mountains of Russia. In 1916, a baby boy is born to Yevdokia and Konstantin Starfinn, whom they name Viktor. Before the age of 5, a young Viktor watched his father march off to war as a member of the White Army, insurgents against the new communist government as Russia descended into civil war in the wake of the communist revolution. His first decade of life was spent in exile in Siberia, and then in a small Chinese village, before settling in Asahikawa on the island of Hokkaido. Viktor would enter high school in Hokkaido, and like many young kids in the early 1920s, he developed a passionate love for the game of baseball. And as high school wrapped up, he became a true virtuoso of the game, developing into a magnificent two-way player. Viktor's life was looking up, but behind the scenes, tragedy would strike. Viktor's father became involved in Hokkaido with another Russian immigrant, a woman much younger than Viktor's mother. The story goes that Konstantin and his mistress got into a political disagreement that escalated into a physical altercation that ended with a knife in the woman's back. Konstantin was arrested and put on trial for his crimes, leaving Yevdokia as a single parent and putting his family at risk of deportation. Elsewhere in Japan, the prolific newspaper magnate Matsutaro Shoriki had been undertaking a novel entertainment experiment, bringing American ballplayers to square off against Japanese college all-star teams, to frustrating results for the home team. In 1934, however, Shoriki decided not to mess around anymore and searched for the best players around the country to build a professional league to square off against a major league all-star team led by Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Shoriki had a team of solid hitters for his all-Nippon team and began to craft a rotation centered on the talented young phenom Eiji Sawamura and, of course, our hero Viktor Starfinn. Viktor had a year of high school remaining, and Shoriki wanted him to sign for his team by any means necessary. Historians debate the circumstances under which Starfinn signed with the all-Nippon team, but some say Shoriki hung the threat of deportation over Viktor's head as Konstantin's trial was about to commence. Whatever the case, he would make his debut against the Americans when they came to Koshien and Meiji Jingu Stadium in 1934. He was excellent, pitching a shutout inning in Game 1 of the series, though it would ultimately be Sawamura who received the limelight in the wake of the games. Interestingly, in between the American series and the beginning of the Japanese Baseball League in 1936, Starfinn was a part of the first incarnation of the Yomiuri Giants. He acted as their ace on their tour of America, started against the San Francisco Seals in 1935. During that game, he kept a young Joe DiMaggio to 1 for 3 with a walk. Even in the number 2 spot of the Giants' rotation in the shadow of the young Sawamura, Starfinn spun beautiful game after beautiful game on the mound at Korakuen Stadium, winning 25-plus games for 3 straight years to begin his career, highlighted by his 1940 season, in which he held a .97 ERA. He had even married and would go on to have 3 beautiful children. After the 1940 season, Sawamura was conscripted and went to war in China, and Starfinn looked poised to become the ace of the Giants' rotation. Unfortunately, the tragedy that plagued the man had other plans. With the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese went to war against the United States, inventors and exporters of the game that Viktor loved. Hatred of foreigners and their ideals raged across Japan, and many were rounded up and sent to camps. In 1941, the JBL had a bit of a facelift. In a xenophobic attempt to take a game that looked and sounded very foreign, and make it look much more Japanese. Team names, rules, and lingo were changed from their English-sounding original words to names that more befitted the nationalist attitude of the ideas that were in power at the time. And naturally, though Victor grew up in Japan, he was still a foreigner, and he was forced to change his name in order to continue to play in the league. The newly named Hiroshi Suda accepted this humiliation to support his family and continue to play the game he loved. The indignities piled on, but Victor kept dominating. He even started the 1944 season 6-0 with a terrifying .67 ERA. But this would ultimately prove to be his only stats of the season, for on suspicion of pro-Russian espionage, an accusation he had shaken multiple times before over the last 4 years, he and his family were interred in Japan's Gaijin prison camps. During their internment, Konstantin passed away before Victor could say goodbye to his father. He was freed after the war and came back to pitching in 1946, thanks in part to his work as an interpreter with occupying American troops. The Giants refused to take him back, but he would play 9 more seasons with various teams in the new NPB, several with the Daiei Hawks. Victor even reached an incredible milestone in 1953, becoming the first man in Japanese history to earn 300 wins in professional baseball, eclipsed only by 5 men ever since NPB's creation, including the great Masaichi Kaneda. At this, the peak of his achievements though, the sadness that dogged Victor would rear its ugly head one final time. The last time in his last season. By 1955, pitching didn't feel the same for Victor, and his effectiveness waned with the advent of the many strong hitters that graced NPB in the 1950s, Kozuru, Kawakami, and Fujimura, to name a few. He decided to retire after his age 39 season, and sunk into heavy drinking and deep depression afterwards. His melancholy would not leave him until January the 12th, 1957, when his car was found on the train tracks, smashed to bits, and his body found broken beyond repair. The circumstances of his death are unknown. Officially, it was ruled an accident, though others suspect, due to the location he was found and the state he was in, that the crash was a result of intoxication, or, as some others subscribe to, suicide. Undoubtedly, Starfinn's story is a sad one of pain, strife, isolation, marginalization, and seemingly boundless melancholy. It is a reminder of the dark shadows that often lurk beneath the glossy exterior of a baseball star. Baseball of any vintage molds to the times that it's played in. That's in part why it endures. It stays with you, taking many forms not only on its exterior, but also in its interior, within the hearts of its players, coaches, and fans. For Victor Starfinn, it was often an instrument of pain, used by his xenophobic tormentors in World War II, by his superiors to facilitate his compliance, and by his inner demons to fool him into thinking he was an inadequate ballplayer and an inadequate person. But it was also an instrument of freedom, a means of expression for him, one that spared him from the horrors of the Russian Revolution, one that catapulted his name into the national spotlight, allowing thousands to watch his powerful performances in the midst of sold-out crowds, and one that immortalized him in history as one of Japan's finest gentlemen, one of the greatest foreign players ever in NPB, and undoubtedly Russia's most treasured gift to the world of baseball. He was inducted in the second class ever of the Japanese Hall of Fame, joining his legendary teammate Eiji Sawamura in 1960. And his image endures in his hometown of Asahikawa, in the person of the statue that stands stalwart and proud in front of the ballpark that bears his name. I promise the next video will be a lot happier. For now, though, please do like and share this video if you enjoyed it and you know somebody who would enjoy it right along with you. Subscribe and hit that bell icon as well to get your fix all about the world's greatest game. I've been Marshall Emmert. This has been another episode of Global Baseball's Finest. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. But for now, that's the game.